Thank you so much for making time to speak with me, especially because Toronto International Film Festival is back, and you have a short film that is part of this. I would probably say one of the most important, life-changing film festivals that we will ever have, especially as the world deals with COVID-19. Congratulations on that, but I have to ask you, though, how are you holding up throughout the last couple of months dealing with COVID-19, the fact that, racism is now in the forefront. People are, literally fighting about wearing masks, not wearing masks. Every time you open up social media or the news, there's just some crazy things going on. You're going, who would have thought a year ago that we would be in a state like this?
I know. I mean, I've fared well. It's been really a roller coaster. I mean, to call the times turbulent really is an understatement. And that's just what it is. And the reality of it is like, I really am trying to take everything day by day, because with both layers of pandemics going on, racism and coronavirus, it really is at any given hour of any given day, the feelings that I could be experiencing could be wildly different and in full intensity. And it's been a lot to really try and take in, day by day since all of the kind of upheaval. But yeah, overall, I think I've landed out in an okay space, but some days are definitely hard for sure.
Completely understandable, but at least for the next couple of days you can think of other things, because as we said earlier, you have a film in the Toronto International Film Festival. Congratulations on that. Before we talk about your film, I want to ask you about the love of films, movies. When did that start for you, and why film?
Well, it started for me really early on, and really through TV, I would say. My dad is a big lover of comedy and action films, and he really, they really watch film as an escape and for entertainment purposes. And so, the original Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2 was always on at my house, All About the Benjamins, just these really funny comedies that just brought so much joy to me and to my family. And I really loved that experience. And then when I was 12, I was selected to be in a school play, and I loved the experience of performing for people and being able to be a part of bringing the story to life that would make people feel good. And so, I just really was watching and loved film as an audience member first, and the feeling that it brought to me. And then as I got older and was thinking about kind of what I wanted to share with the world with my life, that seemed, storytelling and storytelling through film as the medium really seemed the way to do it.
The great thing for me is for the last, I'd say, 2-3 years, I've been able to talk to folks like yourself and being able to say that the Toronto International Film Festival has really helped pave the way for more female directors being able to have their films, or writers and producers having their films seen at the Toronto International Film Festival. How does it feel being part of something like that, knowing, as we do this interview, there's probably a young girl out there who could be listening to this, and who knows, 10, 15 years later, hopefully I'll still be doing what I'm doing, and I'll be interviewing them and saying, how does it feel being a female director? And they say, well, I remember hearing your interview with, it's groundbreaking. It's always groundbreaking to me.
Yeah, I really it is groundbreaking in that, obviously the numbers for female representation haven't been where they needed to be for quite some time. And I'm grateful for, Tiff is such a juggernaut in the industry and in the film festival world. I mean, we see the ties in with films that get selected for Our People's Choice, and how often that goes on to win Best Picture and things like the festival really has big influence. So when they come around with something like Share Her Journey, and it's championed by someone like Maxine Bailey, it really does confirm to the rest of the world that this is important. This is what needs being paid attention to. So it feels great to me to be participating in the festival in that way, because that's a part of their ethos. But honestly, Tiff has been such a big part of my life as a filmmaker. I went to the University of Waterloo, which was a lot of finance students, and I felt very out of place there sometimes. And just when I was very close to, deciding to sign up for a bank job, or, resigning myself to computer science, I started volunteering at Tiff. And that's kind of what kept the fire alive for me in terms of community and kinship and the experience of watching cinema, because I wasn't necessarily getting it at university, or I wasn't meeting a lot of people that had that same the same interest with such intensity. And so, yeah, for the most of the years I was in university, I would go down and volunteer, and then I was a staff member. I used to work outside of the Scotiabank theater doing the press and industry rush screenings, and I've met, I met another collaborator that I'm working with that's also in the Talent Accelerator or Filmmaker Lab, forgive me, I can't remember which one. We're in it together, and I met him in the rush line. I met them in the rush line at Tiff, Luis de Felipe. And then so it's really interesting to kind of see how full circle this moment feels, almost a decade as well.
It's amazing. I probably walked right by you and didn't even know back then.
Probably, yeah.
Been doing this for like 20 years or so. So most likely you and I have run into each other and not even realize it. Before we start talking about your film, also, I just want to ask you one other question too. Are we going in the right direction when it comes to not just women, people of color, cultural? Are we going down the right path and not just seeing these folks, not just behind the scenes, but their stories being told on the screen as well?
I mean, I don't know if I can't say if we're going on the right path overall. It feels like we're going on the right path because I know, like, myself and the peers that I work with are more committed than ever to making that happen and to making sure that representation for racialized people and for females to have better representation behind the screen and in front. But overall, it feels hard to tell sometimes. I mean, a lot of the time you can see, quote unquote marginalized when people, they get kind of sidelined to the projects that are for marginalized people, right? Females are telling female stories, or Black people telling stories that are like very Black and things like that. But I don't necessarily know. I think that's just the start. I think the thing that I always say is Steven Spielberg directed The Color Purple. And I think when we're working toward the thing where if you are the director, if you're the author, the captain of this ship, and you are going to do the work to really understand the experience and add a positive lens to this other community that you might not be a part of, then you can tell that story. I don't really have a desire to tell only stories about slavery. The Black experience looks so much more than that. And so, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I was just gonna say, I always agree with that because working in broadcasting myself, I know, and of course being Black, people would always expect, oh, you're just gonna talk to Black artists or whatever. I was like, I talk to people in rock, I talk to people in pop, I talk to people in classical, and it doesn't matter what color or whatever else. Music is music, film is film, art is art. It doesn't matter who's in the background. It's how you want to tell that story. So, amen to everything you just said.
Because a lot of people, I've heard the critique, especially when so many organizations were starting their efforts to try and kind of right the wrongs of the representations on their roster, and or not necessarily right the wrongs, but not the wrongs of having the people that are on their roster, but not including so many. And people are saying, well, if it's like, does that mean I can only tell the white stories then or something like that? And it's like, no, that the goal isn't only to have Black people tell Black stories and women tell women's stories and Asian people tell Asian and. That was a bare minimum measure. That was a bare minimum effort where like all the racialized people were like, listen, fine if you want to tell all the stories, but at least let me tell the ones that are about me and my people, at least. So that's where that started from. It wasn't because people only want to tell stories about that. Like, I have lived around white people my entire life. I could write a film about that experience and no Black people be in it, and it would still be good, and it still would be thought-provoking. At least I'd like to think so, and would have something to say, because if we're talking about lived experience or what we're seeing in the day-to-day or the world at large, we are all seeing so much of it, especially with the internet and social media now. It's what kind of care and intention are you bringing to telling that story? And that's really that's a very far away from the question you initially asked, but that's what I think of in terms of overall progress for females in film. It's like, yes, I see it, and I see us making more and what have you, but, I still feel like there's a lot of feelings. I'm really confused why, something like Olivia Wilde's film, which was so good, wouldn't see the kind of box office success. Part of it is like the way that it might be marketed because she is a female, or, what did the studio see in its potential, or that the audiences weren't able to see that they often see so much with other bigger Marvel movies or, other indies comparable to that size. So, yeah.
No, and I agree with everything you're saying, but I do want to add in, though, you do have a film in the Toronto International Film Festival that you are directing, which you directed, which congratulations. And excuse me, it definitely is a story that somebody who is like myself, definitely way over 40, could probably relate to. Can you talk about this film, please? What's it called? And
it's called Sinking. It's called Sinking Ship, and it's a film about a couple who are out for drinks one night and having a conversation about their state of their relationship. And kind of man brings to the table the idea that he feels that the woman in the relationship has outgrown him a bit. And so they try to unpack that as maturely as they feel they can, but we really start to see the emotions unravel in the scene and setting around them as the conversation progresses.
Is that why it's called Sinking Ship?
Yes. Yeah.
Because when I saw the title and then the film, I was like, oh man, this is almost like a punch in the gut to where people who are literally going through this right now might be a scary thing for them to see, like almost going to John's and then go swimming. Yeah.
I mean, I think the total we're trying to do is like it's the sinking ship. It's when the writing feels like the writing is on the wall, right? It's how willing is anyone to accept it. And the writing on the wall might not even be that this is over in that way, but that it's not that it's sinking because they both decide to throw in the towel, but in this instance, it's because neither of them are willing to give up kind of what they're looking for in this relationship. And so in which case the ship is going down as far as they're on it.
What was it like to direct this? And where was the film made?
Film was made in Toronto. It was stressful directing it, but only because it was like such an ambitious feat in that like it's most of it is one take. Like most of a lot of it has to be run through just continuously because most of it was going to live in the wider and medium shot that we land in. And so landing that take was of the utmost importance, which is a lot of dialogue, and my French is hardly workable. So when Herschel and Jenny got on set and we were running, we spent a lot of time rehearsing in English and French to ensure like we were all on the same page. But yeah, like a 10-minute long take like that to reset and to re-together, like there was a lot in my mind of like how hard it could have been if they didn't deliver to the degree that they did, which they really, really did. It was stressful going in, but they made the day easy.
What was it like seeing the finished product?
It was, I don't know. It was like it felt really rewarding. You know, the actual shoot day was easy, but post was really difficult. That was the first time that I'd worked because the entire set is VFX. The only thing that is practical in there is the table and chairs that the guests are sitting on. Everything else is VFX in, and so it's really like we're shooting on a green screen. And as interesting as the conversation is with just a green screen in the background, like the VFX is one of those things where when it's done right, you can't tell and like, you know, there's nothing to complain about. But when it's done poorly, it can really pop you out of it. And that was quite an experience. So watching it when it was done I really felt like I became a director. Like I had to like bring a thing over the finish line because this also was going up in the air, like, you know, was up in the air in the middle of the pandemic. And trying to do post and give notes remotely on VFX stuff and the turnaround time to even export and send it to you. What you could do in person in a session over 60 minutes, or can you just tweak this or can you tweak that, now becomes a 5-day process to like send the notes and make sure they're as specific as you need them to be so that it does get relayed, then implement the work, then export it back to you to watch it, to then make the notes again, and now it's Friday.
My jaw is like I'm picking up my jaw from the floor because I thought because one of my questions was, what bar or restaurant did you actually do this in Toronto? Because I don't recognize it.
Really?
Wow! Yeah, great job.
That makes me so happy, Rudy. Thank you. I will tell Persona Paul, who is our VFX lead VFX artist and supervisor, because it was. I sent him many emails being like, one more tweak. So I'm glad. Yeah, thank you.
Great job. What do you hope that folks are going to get from seeing this story? Because, like I said, for some, it might be a little scary because I could see them sitting there watching this and they're kind of looking at each other like, do we need to talk?
It's so funny because in the terms, like, I think of the work that I do in terms of, like, advocating and trying to progress the woman on screen, especially the Black woman on screen, is, I like to say, radical in its simplicity, right? In that, like, we're not drawing circles around the fact that they're Black in this or it's a Black couple having this conversation. It's just a Black couple having the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so when you ask that, my thought is, if people walk away from the film and are kind of enraptured in thoughts of their own relationship and not the fact that this was a Black couple having this conversation, I will be over the moon. Because it was people seeing people be people and not it be about the fact that they were Black.
You know what? It's kind of funny. Until you just said what you just said, it never even occurred to me either. I was looking at a story. I was actually looking at an older couple. I wasn't looking if it was Black or white or whatever. I was just looking at just a couple going, man, we're going through this same thing. You've done an amazing job.
That makes me so happy I could cry. Yeah, she really did. Tanya Thompson, she's been a collaborator of mine for nearly a decade and just recently, in the last couple of years, stepped into the writing space more formally. And it is, I want to say unfair, but it's like she's so talented, you have to just, like, appreciate it. Because I don't know how you came out of, like, how did that come out of you? And, like, in a week, she could write a script like that. It's crazy, yeah.
What are the future plans now? When are you doing any more films? Are you doing any features?
Yeah, so I have a feature in early development now, another one written by Tanya, about it's a revenge story starring two teenage girls who saved themselves from a harrowing night in the California desert.
Wow.
And, yeah, so really trying to, flex some more of the bigger scale set chops and kind of some more slick action sequences. So focus on that as a feature. In the interim, I also have a show in development with New Metric Media and Bell called Bria Matt Gets a Life. And it's about a 25-year-old millennial navigating adulthood in a predominantly white world, which is made all the more chaotic but also tolerable by the presence of her imaginary hype girl. So those are the two big things on the front now. And I produced another film in the festival, Black Bodies, which was directed by Kelly Fife Marshall, and I'll be producing her feature, the telephone feature When Morning Comes as well next year. So
you have two films in the festival.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'll kick myself for not asking. What's the second one about?
No, it's okay. It's called Black Bodies, and it's the sequel to a film we released earlier this year, the viral film Marathon, and it's a Black man kind of lamenting, of what the race is like in the 21st century, being a Black man and just trying to live and exist and coming face to face with those realities. It's a 5-minute film, very poetic and really well shot. Jordan Oram was the cinematographer on that film. Him and Kelly have worked together on previous projects. Tamar Bird was my co-producer. But yeah, it's a really potent film, powerful. If you've seen Haven, Kelly really delivers the gut punch when it comes to impact filmmaking and making work as an activist. So yeah, I'm happy to champion that kind of storytelling as a producer through her lens. Yeah.
When do we get to see both films at TIFF?
Happy to tell you, Black Bodies will be premiering in Shortcuts Program 2, September 12th at 6 p.m. And Sinking Ship will be premiering in Shortcuts Program 5, September 15th at 6 p.m.
Amazing. Congratulations on all your success. And
Thank
continuous success in telling your stories and, championing your way through in telling as many stories as being a director, being a producer, being a writer in every fashion possible. This has just been an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed this and looking forward to all the other films and projects you're going to be doing. Social media, the place to go. Where do we go to follow you?
Yes, the Instagram is the best one. Sasha Leigh Henry, Sasha Sasha, Leigh Leigh, Henry Henry, all one word. I am funny and rude as hell on there. You should follow me.
Before we go, advice to anybody who wants to get into film fest. Not film festival, but getting into films. because when we spoke earlier, you really made it clear, working in the bank, volunteering, working with other volunteers who now you guys are all in that filmmaking genre. What advice can you give those folks who may be thinking, you know what, this is just too hard, especially with COVID-19 happening right now? What advice can you give them?
I would say the long is road and winding, and the journey is made 1,000 times easier with the right community around you. Find that community. It is worth the investment of your time to build that community. The people who not will collaborate with you as you make your films, but when you can't pay your rent will cry to you and be like, oh, I also can't either, and you'll feel less alone. And like those have been invaluable to me, those relationships over the last 5, 6, 7 years, because, you know, when you are that exhausted and you're like, oh, I can't make this, film is collaborative. You need that community that looks at what you're trying to do and sees your exhaustion and says, I'll help you. And people will do it when you spend that time pouring into the community you're building. And, I think that's really important.
It's the absolute truth. Thank you again for this interview. And cross fingers the next time we speak, it'll be in person. I'm really hoping for that. I'd love to have a sit down and chat with you and talk more about films, life in general, just so many things. You have an incredible story. You be safe.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank
you
so much, Rudy.
And we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.